My husband screamed at me, "Why can't you be more like my brother's wife?" But the day his brother found out the truth, everything shattered. When I first met Ethan, he seemed perfect. Gentle, caring, the kind of man who made me feel like I was the only woman in the world. His older brother, Ryan, was already married to Sophia by then, a woman everyone in the family admired. Sophia was beautiful in a quiet, graceful way, the type of person who carried herself effortlessly and made others feel at ease. At family gatherings, she was always the center of admiration, the one people praised for her elegance, her cooking, her kindness. But I never thought that her presence in the family would one day become the shadow over my marriage. From the moment I married Ethan, the comparisons began. On our honeymoon, when I wore a dress I had chosen so carefully, Ethan smiled faintly and said, "You remind me of Sophia. She wore something like this once, she looked amazing." I laughed it off then, not realizing that this was only the beginning. As the months passed, his admiration for her slipped into our daily lives. When I cooked dinner, he would say, "Sophia makes her pasta with fresh herbs. You should try it like she does." When I arranged flowers in the living room, he would murmur, "Sophia always knows how to make a home feel warm." Even on days when I dressed up for him, hoping to hear a simple, "You look beautiful," instead I heard, "Sophia always has a way of carrying herself. You should take notes from her." It was as though I could never just be myself. I was constantly measured against a woman who wasn't even trying to compete with me. What hurt the most was the difference in how he treated us. Round Sophia, Ethan seemed alive. His voice softened when he spoke to her, his smile came more easily, and his patience never seemed to run out. He noticed every detail about her, the way she styled her hair, the earrings she wore, even how she laughed. But with me, his words were short, his attention elsewhere, his warmth fading. At one family dinner, I served him food, hoping for a simple word of appreciation. He took a bite, then said loudly enough for the table to hear, "Sophia's roast chicken last week was incredible, so juicy. You really have to learn from her." My cheeks burned as laughter filled the room, and Sophia quickly tried to change the subject, but the damage was done. I sat there, smiling faintly while my heart crumbled inside. The pattern continued everywhere we went. Sophia bought a new dress, he mentioned it to me for days. If she hosted a gathering, he praised her endlessly as though nothing I did could ever compare. Even in moments meant to be ours, quiet evenings, anniversaries, small celebrations, her name lingered between us like a ghost, always present, always overshadowing me. I tried to talk to him to explain how much it hurt, but he dismissed my feelings with a shrug. "You're overthinking. I'm just saying she does things well. Why are you so sensitive?" But it wasn't just admiration. It was the way his eyes softened around her, the way he leaned in to listen when she spoke, the way he carried her name on his lips more often than he carried mine. And in the silence of our home, when the comparisons echoed louder than his love, I began to wonder if I had ever truly been his choice at all, or if I had simply been standing in the shadow of a woman he had admired long before I walked into his life. From the outside, our marriage looked normal. Smiles in family pictures, holding hands at gatherings, polite laughter when people teased us about having kids soon. But behind closed doors, my reality was different. I lived in constant comparison, a silent competition I never signed up for. Sophia's name was everywhere in my home. On my first birthday as Ethan's wife, I thought he would surprise me. I dressed up, decorated the house, even baked a small cake for us to share. When he walked in, he handed me a simple box with a bracelet inside. My heart warmed until he said, "Sophia helped me pick this. She always knows what looks good." I smiled weakly, thanking him, but deep down the gift didn't feel like mine anymore. Felt like hers. It wasn't only the big moments, it was the little ones that broke me the most. When we went shopping, he would hold up clothes and say, "Sophia would love this color, it suits her skin tone." When we were cooking together, he'd casually remark, "Sophia uses olive oil instead of butter. That's why her food tastes better." When I struggled with something at work, instead of comfort, he'd say, "Sophia balances everything so well, her job, her home, her family. Maybe you could learn from her." Every sentence was a knife, and every day I bled a little more. But the worst was during family gatherings. Sophia would walk into the room, elegant without trying, her laughter soft but magnetic. Everyone's eyes naturally drifted to her, including Ethan's. I saw the way his gaze followed her, not with the innocent admiration of a brother-in-law, but with something deeper, something he didn't even try to hide from me anymore. At Ryan's birthday, Sophia baked a cake. Everyone praised it and Ethan clapped the loudest. Later that night as I served him a slice of pie I had made, he said with a sigh, "Sophia really has a gift. This pie is good, but hers was unforgettable." I smiled as tears burned behind my eyes. I had spent hours in the kitchen not because I loved baking but because I wanted to make him proud. And still I wasn't enough. It wasn't only what he said, it was how he treated me compared to her. With Sophia his patience stretched endlessly. He listened carefully, asked questions, laughed at her stories. Around her he became the man I thought I married. Attentive, warm, alive. But with me, his tone was clipped, his patience thin. If I spoke too long he sighed. If I shared an idea he brushed it aside. If I wanted affection his hands felt heavy, his eyes distracted. I remember one night I asked him softly, "Do you even see me anymore?" He looked up from his phone and said, "Of course I do. You're my wife. Stop being dramatic." Then he rolled over and fell asleep. But I knew the truth. He saw me, yes, but only in the shadow of Sophia. And every time I looked in the mirror I didn't see a wife anymore. I saw a woman slowly vanishing into comparisons she could never win. It wasn't as if Sophia was trying to compete with me, that was the most painful part. She was kind, warm, always smiling at me, always including me in conversations, never once making me feel less. Yet somehow her presence alone was enough to dim mine in Ethan's eyes. At family gatherings it was always the same story. On our first Christmas together as a married couple, I spent days decorating our home. Stringing lights, hanging ornaments, baking cookies the way my mother used to. I was proud, waiting for Ethan's reaction. He walked in, looked around and simply said, "It's nice, but you should see how Sophia decorated their house. It looks like something out of a magazine." The cookies I had placed carefully on the table? He barely touched them. Later that evening he mentioned how Sophia's gingerbread was the best he had ever tasted. I stood there smiling politely, but inside I felt like a child holding up a drawing next to a masterpiece. Never good enough, never truly seen. Our second wedding anniversary should have been a night for just the two of us. I planned everything, his favorite restaurant, a handwritten letter, even a small gift I knew he had been wanting. He smiled and thanked me, but halfway through dinner he leaned back and said, "You know, Ryan told me Sophia surprised him with a trip last year. She really knows how to make anniversaries special." My smile froze. He didn't realize it, but with that one sentence he erased every effort I had poured into the evening. Later that night when I gave him the gift his first words were, "It's nice, but Sophia has such good taste when it comes to presents. She always knows what people will love." I went to the bathroom, locked the door and cried silently into a towel so he wouldn't hear. There was also the night of a family party. I wore a new dress, one I had saved months to buy. I had my hair done, put on makeup I rarely wore, all in hopes that for once he might look at me the way he looked at her. When I stepped out of the car Ethan glanced at me briefly, muttered, "You look nice," and then turned to watch Sophia walk in behind us. His whole face lit up as he whispered, "She always knows how to make an entrance." The compliment I had been waiting for all evening slipped away, stolen before it could even reach me. Sophia never boasted, never tried to draw attention, never even suspected what her presence was doing to me. She would smile warmly at me, invite me to help her in the kitchen, ask me about my work. But Ethan's eyes always betrayed him, always fixed on her with a softness I hadn't seen directed at me in a long time. It was like standing next to a flame. No matter how much light I tried to carry, hers always outshone mine. And the cruelest part was she didn't even mean to. Sophia wasn't my enemy. But in Ethan's eyes, she was everything I wasn't. And that truth, unspoken yet undeniable, was slowly breaking me from the inside. For the longest time I convinced myself it was harmless. That Ethan's constant comparisons were nothing more than innocent admiration for his sister-in-law. I told myself I was overreacting, that I just needed to be more confident, more patient. But the truth always finds its way to the surface, and the cracks in my marriage were becoming harder to ignore. It started with the way he looked at her. At family dinners his eyes lingered too long. He would follow her movements with quiet attention, as though he was memorizing every detail. How she laughed, how she poured a glass of wine, how she tucked her hair behind her ear. At first I brushed it off. But the more I saw it, the more it gnawed at me. That wasn't how a man looked at his brother's wife. That was how a man looked at someone he wanted but could never have. Then came the slips. Little words that shattered me in ways he never realized. One night while we were lying in bed, I told him about a project at work. He nodded absent-mindedly, then said, "Sophia once mentioned something similar. She's really smart about these things." He spoke her name so softly, so naturally, as if she belonged in every conversation between us. Another evening, I asked him which dress I should wear for an upcoming event. Instead of answering, he murmured, "Sophia would know. She has an eye for these things." It wasn't what he said, it was how he said it. With a gentleness I rarely heard when he spoke to me. The moment that chilled me came one night when his phone buzzed on the table. I wasn't trying to pry, but I saw the way his face lit up before he even checked the screen. It wasn't my name that caused that reaction. And though it was only a message from Ryan in their family group chat, I noticed how quickly Ethan scrolled to see if Sophia had said something. When I asked why he smiled like that, he brushed it off with a laugh. "Don't be silly." But I saw the truth in his eyes. It wasn't Ryan he was waiting to hear from. Slowly, I realized his warmth toward me had grown colder. Our conversations became shorter. Our nights together felt forced, his touch distracted. But when it came to Sophia, even in casual moments, his attention sharpened, his patience stretched, his smile returned. It was like living with a man whose heart wasn't in our home anymore. And that was when the thought crept in, a thought I had tried so hard to bury. What if Ethan didn't just admire Sophia? What if he wanted her? What if all along I had married a man whose heart already belonged to someone else? That suspicion clung to me like a shadow. And though I had no proof, deep down I knew something about his love for me was not real. Suspicion has a way of whispering at first, quiet enough for you to ignore, yet loud enough to unsettle you when the room falls silent. With Ethan, those whispers soon turned into echoes I couldn't silence anymore. Family gatherings became my private torment. I watched him when he thought no one else was paying attention. The way he leaned forward when Sophia spoke, his eyes locked on her as though her words were the only ones that mattered. He laughed more easily with her, fuller, richer, a sound I hadn't heard directed at me in months. When she touched his arm in passing, even casually, I saw the flicker in his expression, that brief softness that no husband should ever wear for his brother's wife. One evening, after dinner at Ryan and Sophia's, I noticed him lingering in the kitchen while I was grabbing my purse. Sophia was putting dishes away, humming softly, and Ethan stood just a little too close, handing her plates she didn't need help with. It was innocent on the surface, but I saw the admiration in his gaze, the way he drank in the smallest details of her. And when he noticed me watching, he stepped back quickly, forcing a cough as though nothing had happened. Then came the night that froze me to my core. We were lying in bed, the room dark and silent, when I heard him murmur in his sleep. At first it was soft, incoherent, but then I caught it, her name. "Sophia," whispered like a prayer. My chest tightened, tears stung my eyes, and I lay there staring at the ceiling, my heart breaking into pieces I couldn't gather. He turned over, still sleeping, still lost in whatever dream carried her name. And in that moment I realized, even in his dreams I wasn't the woman he wanted. The most telling sign came by accident. He had been scrolling on his phone one afternoon when he left it unlocked on the couch. I glanced down, not meaning to invade his privacy, but what I saw made my stomach drop. It was a picture of Sophia from Ryan's social media, a family photo at a picnic. But instead of simply scrolling past it, Ethan had paused, zooming in on her face. His fingers lingered on the screen far too long, as if he were memorizing her features. When he realized I had seen, he quickly locked the phone and laughed nervously. "Relax, I was just checking the photo." But I knew. His reaction told me more than any words could. After that, everything changed for me. Every smile he gave her, every mention of her name, every sigh when he thought no one noticed, it all became heavier, darker. I started replaying moments in my head, questioning every memory of us together. Had I ever really been his choice? Or had I been a stand-in for a woman he could never have? The suspicion grew roots inside me, twisting tighter with each passing day. And though I had no proof carved in stone, my heart already knew the truth. Ethan didn't just admire Sophia. He longed for her. And I was the wife caught in the cruel shadow of his obsession. It happened one evening after another family gathering. I had sat quietly at the table all night while Ethan's laughter wrapped itself around Sophia's every word. He barely noticed when I spoke, but his eyes never left her. By the time we drove home, my chest ached with unspoken words. In the car, I finally asked, my voice trembling, "Do you even realize how much you talk about her? How you compare me to her every single day?" He gripped the steering wheel tighter, his jaw clenched. "You're imagining things." But I pressed on, my voice breaking. "Ethan, I hear you in your sleep. You say her name. Do you understand what that does to me?" Silence filled the car, heavier than anything I had ever felt. He didn't deny it. He didn't even look at me. His knuckles whitened on the wheel. The final crack came days later during an argument. We were fighting about something small. The bills, the laundry, I don't even remember. But in the heat of it, he shouted words I'll never forget. "Why can't you be more like Sophia?" The moment the name left his lips, the room went still. His chest heaved, his eyes widened. He realized what he had said, but it was too late. I stood frozen, my world collapsing around me. Every suspicion, every sleepless night, every wound his comparisons had carved into me, all of it was confirmed in one sentence. He didn't just admire her. He wanted me to be her. I didn't cry. Not at first. I just stared at him, at the man who had promised to love me, realizing that his love had never fully been mine. He tried to backtrack, stammering, "I didn't mean it like that, you're twisting my words." But his voice was just noise now. Because deep down I already knew. I had always known. The silence after his words was louder than any argument we had ever had. "Why can't you be more like Sophia?" kept ringing in my ears like a cruel anthem. He realized too late what he'd said, but the damage was already carved into my heart. I didn't shout. I didn't beg. I just stood there, numb, as if my body had turned to stone. He tried to cover his mistake, reaching for me, his voice shaky. "I didn't mean it like that. I was angry, I wasn't thinking." But I pulled away. Because anger doesn't create truth, it reveals it. That night I packed a bag. Not all my things, just enough to remind him I wasn't bluffing. He watched me from the doorway, panic flickering across his face, but still too proud to say the words I needed. "Where are you going?" he asked. I zipped the bag and finally looked at him, my voice low but steady. "Somewhere I can breathe without competing with a woman I'll never be." His lips parted as if to protest, but no sound came out. Because he knew I was right. The days that followed were a storm. Calls, messages, excuses, each one emptier than the last. He begged me to come home, promised he would stop comparing, swore he never meant anything by it. But the thing about betrayal is this. Once you've seen the truth in someone's eyes, you can't unsee it. At family gatherings, I noticed how he struggled to act normal around Sophia now, how his laughter sounded forced, how his glances became stolen instead of open. He was afraid I would notice, but I already had. And Sophia, sweet, innocent Sophia. She began noticing the shift too. She asked me once quietly, "Are you okay? You seem distant." I forced a smile, swallowing the lump in my throat, because how could I tell her the truth? That the man she treated as a brother-in-law had been holding her as a silent standard against me all along? Something in me hardened after that night. I no longer tried to outshine Sophia, no longer exhausted myself to earn a kind word from Ethan. I gave him nothing but silence, the same silence he had given me when I begged for love. For the first time in our marriage, he felt the emptiness he had created. He realized too late that comparisons can starve a love to death, and ours was already fading into dust. And as I looked at him across the dinner table one evening, his eyes downcast, his food untouched, I thought to myself, "You didn't just lose me to Sophia. You lost me to your own blindness." For weeks, I kept my distance, watching Ethan unravel in the silence I gave him. He grew restless, nervous, more desperate with each passing day. But instead of letting go of what broke us, he clung tighter to it. To her. And then the truth slipped. It was a Sunday evening at Ryan and Sophia's. The whole family was gathered, laughter echoing through the dining room. I sat quietly, forcing myself to smile, while Ethan kept sneaking glances at Sophia. I'd grown used to it by now, but this time Sophia noticed. At first she brushed it off. But when Ryan asked me about work and I began to answer, Ethan interrupted with, "Sophia, didn't you say something similar last week? You should tell them you always explain things better." The table went quiet. Everyone looked at him, then at me. My fork trembled in my hand. And in that silence, Sophia's face changed. Confusion, then discomfort, then realization. Later that night, as coats were being gathered, Sophia pulled Ethan aside. I wasn't meant to hear, but I did. Ethan, do you even realize how much you talk about me in front of your wife? It's not fair to her. It's not normal. His reply was hushed, frantic, but the words carried enough weight to reach me. I can't help it, Sophia. You're everything. He stopped himself, but it was too late. I froze in the hallway, my heart slamming against my chest. Sophia's eyes widened in shock, her voice shaking. I'm your brother's wife. Do you hear yourself? Ryan came over then, confusion on his face, asking what was wrong. Sophia quickly covered, brushing it off, but I saw the look in her eyes. She knew. He finally knew. That night when we got home, I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I simply told him, "You've humiliated me for the last time." The next morning I packed more than just a bag. I packed my life. Because I realized something that night. Ethan had never been mine. Not truly. And I deserved to be loved without comparison, without competition, without living in another woman's shadow. As I closed the door behind me, he begged, his voice breaking, "Don't leave. Please. I only ever wanted the best." I looked at him one last time and whispered, "Then you should have seen it when it was standing right in front of you." And I walked away, leaving him with the very emptiness he had created. After that dinner, Sophia couldn't hide the unease in her eyes. I could see her pulling away from Ethan's presence, avoiding his gaze, her voice tighter than before. She hadn't told Ryan yet, but silence like that never lasts. It came to a head 2 weeks later. Ryan showed up at our house unexpectedly one evening, his expression grim. Sophia stood beside him, her face pale, her hands twisting nervously. Ethan stiffened the moment he saw them at the door. He knew. Ryan didn't waste time with pleasantries. His voice was sharp, cutting. "Is it true?" Ethan tried to laugh it off. "What are you talking about?" But Ryan's eyes were blazing. "Don't you dare lie to me. Sophia told me everything. The way you look at her, the things you've said." Sophia flinched, shame coloring her cheeks. Tears welled in her eyes as she whispered, "I tried to ignore it, Ryan. I thought maybe I was imagining things, but it wasn't fair to her." She glanced at me, her voice breaking. "To your wife." Ryan's chest rose and fell, fury barely contained. He turned to Ethan, his voice shaking. "You've been coveting my wife? All this time? While you had yours beside you?" The silence that followed was unbearable. Ethan finally opened his mouth, but the excuses stumbled, pathetic. "I never, Ryan, I didn't." But Ryan didn't let him finish. He stepped forward, his face inches from Ethan's, his voice low and venomous. "You're not just a disgrace of a husband, you're a disgrace of a brother." Sophia was crying now, apologizing to me, swearing she never encouraged it, never wanted it. And I believed her, because I had always known the fault didn't lie with her. It was Ethan. Always Ethan. The room was heavy with betrayal, anger, grief. The kind that doesn't fade with time. And as I stood there, clutching my bag, I realized this wasn't just the end of my marriage. It was the end of a family bond, shattered beyond repair. Ethan had destroyed everything with his obsession. He had lost me. He had lost his brother. And in Sophia's horrified eyes, he had lost the last shred of dignity he ever had. I turned to leave, my voice steady but final. "You compared me to her so much, Ethan, but in the end you're the one who could never measure up." And with that I walked out, leaving him in the ruins of what he had built. Not a husband, not a brother, but a man undone by the very obsession he tried to hide. Comparison is poison in relationships. Love cannot survive when one partner is constantly measured against another. Comparison kills intimacy, trust, and self-worth. Silence speaks louder than excuses. When someone doesn't deny or defend what hurts you, their silence reveals the truth you've been trying not to see. Love should make you feel chosen, not replaced. A marriage built on admiration for someone else is already broken, because true love doesn't look outside for what it should find within. Betrayal isn't always physical. Emotional betrayal, the longing for another, cuts just as deeply, sometimes even deeper, because it robs you of security and dignity. Staying in a place where you're never valued is the slowest form of self-destruction. Leaving is not weakness, it's reclaiming your dignity. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories.